Hello, everybody. We've got a show that promises to be at least mildly interesting for your listening and watching enjoyment. I'm your host, Jared Correa. I'm the CEO of Red Cave Law Firm Consulting. For the Monologue, I'm talking about why bespoke workflows are really the only workflows that work for law firms. In the interview, we've got Russell Matson, a criminal defense marketing and local SEO consultant. In the counter program, it's the Norm Macdonald Hour. Now let's talk about what's really stopping you from launching effective workflows in your law firm. In the 1956 epic film, The Ten Commandments, which I watched every Easter, the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II, as played by Yul Brynner, has a go-to line. "So let it be written, so let it be done," he says. As pharaoh, whatever he says is law. In your law firm, this needs to be how you approach your workflows. You build them, they are applied, and you brook no opposition. Now, you don't have to go so far as to ask your employees to make bricks without straw. However, where Ramesses had scribes under his purview to draft his words into existence, you have an array of AI tools. Plus, bonus, you don't have to deal with any plagues either. But the real challenge for Ramesses was building laws out of whole cloth, relying solely on his experience and expertise. As the managing partner of a law firm, you have the same problem, though you were equally equipped to deal with it. Most lawyers understand that as their firms grow, workflows or standard operating procedures, SOPs, become essential to growth because they're the only viable method to delegate effectively to attorneys and staff. But even in the solo environment, workflows can help with consistency. You can work faster yourself if you understand the full breadth of what you need to do, and now it also provides a better experience for your clients who are each treated the same. But if you're not thoughtful about how you build your SOPs, they just won't work for you. Now, here's the rub. Attorneys are busy. They want to focus only on revenue-producing work. They don't view workflow generation and maintenance as revenue-producing work. Thus, they don't take time to build them. Consequently, they never get done. Only that's all wrong. Workflows do save time, which increases work capacity. That makes you more money, regardless of whether you bill by the hour or by the project. This is, friends, a service industry. So, it does make sense to put work into your workflows. That means not taking shortcuts, and that means not trying to overlay rote processes onto your existing law firm because your law firm is different than every other law firm, even if you have a practice niche. Every estate planning law firm is not created equal, and that's true even if you have acquired a deep niche like special needs trusts. So it is that once you overcome the first objection, workflows are actually necessary. You must advance past the next obstacle, the shortcut of simply adopting cookie-cutter processes that you find in books, online, or via generic AI drafting without applying enough specificity. This is the thing that stops law firms from generating effective workflows, and this is where you need to find your inner Ramesses. You must generate the bespoke laws for your own kingdom. While it is okay to have a starting point, you can't skip the process of being thoughtful about every stop on the workflow build. That counts for your intake process. How do your clients find you? What sort of follow-up tolerance do they have, and via what media? That's probably most essential for your substantive workflows, however, which will decidedly be your most robust. Here, though, you've got the innate knowledge of how the different types of cases are handled in your firm. You intimately understand the specific tickler system that will generate the best work product from your team. You know when and how to follow up with your clients to get what you need from them. Ultimately, nobody knows that better than you. And as the owner of the law firm, you have to be the one who drafts or reviews and finalizes any process that runs through your business, the same as you would need to approve any substantive workflow that's delivered to clients or the court. Now, the last step is that you need to be able to access the progress for workflows for each client and lead in your law firm. That means you have to convert your finalized processes into the appropriate software tools. Always draft first, because implementing inside of your tech is much harder to revise than a document would be. Once you pick the right tools for the right workflows, CRM for intake, LPM or project management software for client management, accounting for finances, etc., automate everything you can and leave manual tracks for the rest. Reporting tools and dashboards in your softwares will allow you to quickly access whether the firm is operating at peak efficiency or where you need to pull some strings. Put the work in, reap the rewards. To quote the Eagles, you can go the distance. We'll find out in the long run. Ramesses II would love that shit. I honestly don't know how to segue from here. I'm not seeing a through line from the late Pharaoh Ramesses to the late Glenn Fry, but I can promise you this. My conversation with Russell Matson is coming up next, and it's going to get even weirder. Hide your sacred cats from Neckbet. Well, I've effectively run out of things to say, which is awkward because this is a podcast. So I'm silently going to think about how I would design the perfect charcuterie board. Fuck it. Not sure that's my calling. Let's just introduce our guest instead before I start slicing the finest meats and cheeses. Our guest today is Russell Matson, who's a marketing consultant for criminal defense law firms. Russell, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Jared.
I don't think we've talked in a number of years. Is that correct?
I think it was before the pandemic at Suffolk Law School. So yes, that would be a number of years. I agree.
Was it an event or like what was going on?
It was like
there?
a Festivus thing where there were four of us.
Yes. We did a Festivus podcast, I think. That was glorious.
Yes. It was a fun event, and it involved complaining and it being recorded and amplified. So really right up my alley.
Is there anything better than that?
No.
Really?
No.
Unfortunately, it's not Festivus season right now.
Yeah.
So I have to tell you, when I was a kid, my across the street neighbor was named Russell. Can I tell you a little about Russell? He was a real douchebag.
I'm all ears.
Wispy mustache. Wispy mustache, Kentucky waterfall, mesh baseball caps, just a real piece of shit. He had a black 1980 Pontiac Firebird. Remember those? That's real with the bird on the hood. He's always tinkering with the car.
Flames on the hood? Oh, those were the guys in high school that used to beat me up. Sure.
He was such a dick. My dad fucking hated this guy. His nickname for him was Russell the Love Muscle, which is like an elite tier nickname if you play it the right way.
I was called that as well, not in a complimentary fashion.
No, I don't think this is complimentary either. But played correctly, it might be complimentary.
It depends. There was that when I was younger. There was the sense that if you wanted to portray Russell Love Muscle, if it worked 1 out of 100 times, it was an effective strategy. But it really depended on your goals.
We're off to a roaring start, I have to say. So those are the only two Russells I know, him and you. And I don't know what happened to that Russell.
Yeah, when I was growing up, there was Russell Crowe was when I was older, but when I was growing up, it was Bill Russell. So I'm going for first names. Bill Russell, I have a better association with. Russell Crowe, I don't know, unfortunately. I'll work on that. Yeah.
So we haven't talked in a while, but prior to like podcasting for Festivus, I remember talking to you a little bit about your business. You had a whole bunch of stuff going on. Like you had a law firm, you're doing marketing consultant. Like you've always been really busy. And if I remember correctly, maybe you had a company that you sold at some point. I could be wrong on any of this. So, but let's start at the beginning. What are you doing like right now at this moment?
So right now at this moment, I'm on a podcast with Jared on the legal late.
Aside from that.
Yeah. Well, I'm very grounded. So my
Look
focus,
at you.
my focus,
living in the moment.
Yes. Yeah, my focus is criminal defense marketing, specifically in New England, because I just like driving around New England. And, at one point I had, yes. Yeah, it's just my idea of fun. And, I've been to like every district court in Massachusetts when I was practicing. And, I had like professional relationships with some other criminal defense attorneys across New England. And I have a daughter and a brother that I like to drive around New England. So I have been messing around a lot with AI, and I understand the New England criminal defense market. So it's just kind of like, could I do consulting work for criminal defense attorneys in places I haven't physically been to? Yes. But I wouldn't have quite the same competitive advantage if I haven't walked into the courtroom and drunk coffee there.
What an interesting niche. Like, it's an even deeper niche than I thought, because you're just doing New England.
Yes. Although my next ebook, and I'm going to say this, I'm not making this up, because many things, maybe most things I say sound utterly absurd. It's an ebook. It's about comparing the criminal defense markets of Maine, Maryland, and Michigan, aimed at criminal defense attorneys who like exotic meat and coffee.
Okay, so let's rewind for a second.
Yeah.
You like driving around New England. Me too. There's a lot of cool places to go in New England, especially in the summer. Are there any like underutilized areas of New England that you think people should discover if they're not aware of them right now?
I mean, I love Western Mass, and I love the Yankee Candle Factory. So that's good for kids. There's a place in Arnold, Mass called Arnold's Meats. We can get frog legs. You can get all sorts of exotic meats.
Really?
But, yes.
Huh.
And because my daughter is 10, I've taken her to like many science-y center museums. So we've been to the Sea Science Center a lot in Manchester. We were recently at a dinosaur theme park not too far from New London, Connecticut. I mean, there's just, it just depends on your thing. But because I can't prove this, but I suspect I've been to more district courts than any other criminal defense attorney in the state, because I've been to all of them, and then I've been to a bunch that don't exist anymore.
I don't know that you could go to more.
Yes.
You've been to all of them, literally.
Yes. Yes. And it's kind of like, I think it might be Barry Bonds that hit homers in more ballparks. Like if you've hit a homer in a ballpark and then they don't play there anymore. Yes.
Right. Still counts.
Yes.
That's fascinating. So what a great time to be traveling with your daughter at 10 years old. Like that's right before they start to hate you. A great road trip partner. Yeah. My daughter's 11. She's a great road trip partner. Will still talk to me. So let's talk about the exotic meats and cheeses. What's that all about?
Well, so I didn't realize this podcast was mostly going to be about my daughter, but at first, people have called me now. People called me a picky eater when I was growing up, which felt insulting, but also was completely not only fair and accurate. And my daughter, at first, like she would only want me to take her to McDonald's, and like nothing. She would start
chicken nuggets.
Exactly. And then when I would take her to Wendy's, oh my God, the meltdown she would have when I would take her to Wendy's. So
it's not the right kind of nugget.
Yeah. So I would try to, slowly expand it. But then I realized the thing was to go so far out her comfort zone that. So I like in Newport, there's a place that has exotic jerkies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. I've driven by there many times.
Yes. Yeah. I've been, that's like, I want to say it's on like Thorne Street, right by it's right where all the action is downtown.
Yes.
And so once you're like, hey, do you want wildebeest or alligator today? Then suddenly fast food in a box from a different place really doesn't seem that exotic.
Right. If you're eating wildebeest. Oh, that's interesting. Kudos to you for getting her to try that. All right. So you also mentioned this new book you've got. What's the name of the book?
Criminal. That's an excellent question. You would think I would have the precise answer. Yes.
The book is called Moby Dick. No, go on. Yes.
Herman Melville and I wrote Moby Dick, and I want to say 1853 together. This is the sequel. It's criminal defense marketing using AI.
Okay. You were talking about like multiple different states that you were comparing. Like it seemed like an odd cluster of states. Like why did you? Yeah.
So at first I was going to write a book about Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And it's basically this is Matson marketing. So I was like, you know what? I'd learn a lot more if I use 3 states that also begin with M, and I work in exotic meats. Plus, until you do the research, I don't spend a lot of time saying nice things about Ted Nugent, right? I can make a record saying that. But once you start to do the research, you realize
you're not alone.
You can't talk about meats in Michigan without talking about the fact that Ted Nugent uses a bow. And if you're into punk rock in Michigan, you also have to talk about the band, the Meatmen. So there's all these connections once you tie them together.
Yeah. Ted Nugent, quite a dick in real life.
Yes, that's all that counts.
You've got a lot of alliteration working here. So what is the thesis of the book? Are we talking like how to market in the modern world, like how to use AI for these firms, combo platter of both? Like if I was a attorney who wanted to buy a book like that, what would I be learning?
So I guess this is what it boils down to. Google matters, and it's going to matter for a long time. But ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, et cetera, matter more. So do you want to be the person that these LLMs recommend, or would you rather it be a competitor? That's up to you.
Yeah. So when you say Google, I feel like that's a little bit of a loaded question nowadays, because I think a lot of people are doing things like using the Google AI overview and not even necessarily realizing it's like a different thing from traditional search.
Yes, there's that, and then there's Gemini. And it's not that it's okay, I'm going to go on a diatribe or a diversion. Like at one point, like in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was like the phone book was a thing. And the difference between the phone book and the web was just almost a complete disconnect.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is huge and influential, but they're often drawing from the same source material as search engines. So it's not nearly as dramatic.
True. Yeah.
So, for example, if I was, I doubt you have spent a lot of time worrying about how you are going to show up in the LLMs.
Next to none.
Yes. But having said that, if you had, you're the guy who's hosted several podcasts, and you're a lecturer at a law school, so you have a bunch of obvious credentials.
Yeah, that's why I'm not worried about
it. Right. But if you're someone like, I've spent a lot of money on websites, and it says, I'm an aggressive attorney. We fight for our clients. If you just have a bunch of generic stuff that doesn't stand out, we do good work, et cetera, you have a much higher risk of falling through the cracks.
And especially if you've relied on like traditional SEO to get most of your work over the last 10 years.
Yes. And if it might work, you're like, okay, we have, if you have some sort of word salad, like we spend money and then we send it to these landing pages and we get clients from that may, and you're like, here's my prototypical worst firm. Because why would I be positive? We don't want that. It seems like the prototypical worst firm is like, we have a bunch of partners that sit around once or twice a month. We never change. We have lots of overhead, right? We're signed into all of these long-term
Gotta have
things.
lots of overhead.
Yes. So I think in the world of AI, it's good to have a niche. It's good to be flexible. It's good to be able to have a story that people can recommend. And also, it's also good to be like, if you have a referral network and you're sort of hooked into a lot of stuff and you don't get a lot of business from the web, that might work too.
Right. Yeah. True. I've seen referral networking coming back a little bit for people, which I think is a good thing, ultimately. So I think that's how everybody starts marketing, honestly. When you start a business, you don't have the money to like go and buy a digital marketing campaign. So what do you, so I think that all makes sense. What are you seeing, or what are you recommending that criminal defense attorneys do? Let's start there. So one thing you mentioned was like having a story. How do you have a story? Niching down. How do you niche down effectively? Like, is there such a thing as like too deep a niche? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Okay. So, criminal defense compared to other areas of law has its own distinct quirks. So depending on where you are, 85, 90, sometimes 95% of criminal cases are appointed.
Yep.
Which is not
right. That's
true.
a good point.
Yes. And
not just in Massachusetts, a lot of states are like that. So yeah.
Right. I mean, like I said, depending on the state, it's going to be a different percentage, but for sure For sure, that is the case. So lots of people, certainly there's some firms that do all criminal, but it's not unusual. There's many attorneys that they do a mix of court appointed and private cases.
Right. Which you're not seeing with like a personal injury law firm or some other type of practice.
Right. Yes. So that has its own courts. It's probably affected by AI less than a lot of other areas, because the other thing is, and I'm confidently speaking about other areas of law since I know nothing about them. They're all just one broad, category.
Do it.
So the thing about criminal cases is roughly 90% of the time in New England, depending on the state, it's in person. So you're limited by, and I used to have a bunch of lawyers working for me, and I used to really break down what I was doing. And of course, you'd be like, of course, I'm the greatest lawyer in the world. What am I better at than them? Am I better at driving to and from court than my associates? No, I'm not. Am I better at sitting there? I guess I could be, but the marginal difference would have been minor. Was I better at sitting there in court waiting for to be called than them? I was not. So criminal law has lots of things where it's basically you usually have to be there in person, can go to one, maybe two courts a day, maybe three if you really, but so it has these sort of restrictions, and it matters how people find you. Like you can use AI to have people find you, and there is some prep work in criminal law, but less so than, I don't know anything about PI, but I'm guessing you're getting lots of documents and you're pressing it, you're crunching it, and you're contacting people.
Yeah, mostly less legwork, I think, especially if you're a firm that wants to get settlements rather than go to trial.
Yes, but even that is, and here I am talking about an area of law. I don't even know I'm explaining this. I constantly talk about things I don't know about. So my limited understanding is a lot of it is, if you're someone,
it's the American way.
Exactly. Ready, fire, aim. So if you're a firm that gets a reputation of just getting settlements, the insurance companies will track that, and then soon your settlements may not be as good. So there's all sorts of things in other areas of law that you can break down and analyze. But in criminal law, and the other thing that's more true in criminal law than other areas is clients, it's not always true, but often clients want that individual person.
Sure. Yeah, there are probably percentage-wise a lot more solo criminal defense lawyers than in other practice areas, I would guess.
Yes, I think that is absolutely true, and it is whether it's the personality of criminal defense. Yeah, like the largest criminal defense firm in the country that I know of that only does criminal is 14 lawyers, and it just is. Yeah, so it also pays less than other areas of law. So I've been going on this diatribe and lecture, and I've lost the thread of the original question.
Stories and niche. How do you decide that as a criminal defense attorney? So,
in general, I think it is better in this age to go hyper specific, ludicrously specific, and then expand.
Really?
That is my personal belief, because at least you can get some sort of leverage or traction in the engines. And if you're the guy that does the thing that people know about, then people can maybe, okay, if you do that thing, then there's other stuff that's sort of related. And the stories are individual. Like I have a law school classmate who reached out to me, and he was a public defender for a long time, supervised a bunch of lawyers. I believe him to be very good. Having said that, because he was a public defender for so long, he had no Google reviews.
Yeah.
And he was not doing things with an eye to, yes, I should be doing this podcast, or I should be doing the CLE and recording it. So, within the last week also, I've had lunch with two members of Macdonald. And by that, I mean the Massachusetts Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers.
Yeah.
And the Maine Association.
Most states have a version of that. Yeah.
Yes. So if you are like, I am involved in the local bar association, that is a story and a credential that may or may not mean something, but sounds like it means something and can't be faked. If you're a member of Macdonald, then that is a thing.
Yeah.
And
not everybody does those things, especially now.
Right. So I don't know what someone's individual thing is, but most people have something that you can sort of highlight, or if not, then you can probably have a punch list and be like, wait a minute, what are some easy things I could do that can make me stand out?
Right. Have you seen like really crazy hyper niches for criminal defense work? Like people think of like DUI off the top of their head, but I don't know. Is there like a defense lawyer who only represents people who have done machete attacks or whatever? Some crazy shit like that.
See, what I used to try to do was get high profile cases and then just have them blow up. Like I had one case where I had a client charged with impersonating a police officer. Like he had his sports car. I don't know if you know anything about the Decepticons.
Do I know anything about this? You're in the right place, my friend.
Yeah, I guess the Decepticon is like a transformer that's like a bad cop or something. So
the Decepticons are the evil bots in the transfer. The Autobots are the good bots. Don't get me started. Just keep going.
All right. But I guess the point is, if there really aren't that many different crimes that have in Massachusetts, there's clerk magistrate hearings, which is kind of its own thing. But yeah, there's domestic violence, there's sex offenses, there's DUIs, there's driving.
So you could
offenses.
break it down by like offense type potentially, and start with one.
So one thing I used to do was, because I used to rank for, it was either 4 or 5 years in a row in Google, I would rank number 1 for Massachusetts lawyer, which is completely ludicrous that like I would be number 1 and Mass Lawyers Weekly would be
just
number 5.
Generic Massachusetts lawyers, not even like Massachusetts criminal defense lawyers. Wow.
Right. Massachusetts. For you, because
you did it. You did the thing. You got to number 1 on Google. Congratulations.
Yes, I did. I did lots of things, and I ranked well for 2. I mean, I ranked well for a lot of stuff, but 2 specific niches I found. Leaving the scene of the accident was helpful because those were basically, once you got them down, they were very simple. It was, you'd say, oh, my client is very sorry. They paid the person and mostly the case would go away. And the other oddball niche I would get was old warrants, because I would rank for that. Yeah. And it was this sort of thing where it was funny because you sort of knew exactly how it would play out. You'd get a call from someone. They're like, I'm in Arkansas. And in, 1990 something, I had a shoplifting case, whatever. I left town, took off for 20 years, whatever. Yeah. And so I tried to renew my license today. Well, guess what? And then there'd be this whole thing where they're like, why today? Why now? And I'm like, it's a bureaucracy. I can't tell you. But basically, the vast majority of the time, so it could go 2 ways. Most of the time, old case, no one cares. Occasionally, you get a judge or a prosecutor that's like, they've been, this ridiculous case that no one cares about anymore. They're a scofflaw. We need to, punish them. But so back to your original question, I feel like if you get traction in the engines for some sort of niche, then that is much easier than just there are some, you can only work with what you have. If you're there's 2 things you see a lot. I'm not saying they're bad, but I used to be a prosecutor. You should hire me because I know the system. I guess it's a story. It's, there's lots of other people with a story, but at least it's a story. And then the flip side is I've been a defense attorney all my life. You don't want someone that used to be a traitor, but chances are people have something. And if they don't, they can figure out a way to work towards something to sell.
So let's put a different spin on this. If you were starting a criminal defense firm from scratch right now, clearly you want to develop your story. You want to think about what your niche is and then potentially mushroom from there and add additional niches. What else would you do? Would you focus on Google reviews? Would you put a lot of money into a website? So what is that? You got carte blanche. You're just starting a criminal defense firm for the first time in 2026.
Okay. So the short answer is we have 5 or 6 different LLMs. We don't know the rules, but the real answer is Google reviews. Chances are Google reviews will be very good for a long period of time. and they're kind of hard to fake. And there's something that's anyone can start with Google reviews. As long as and here's the thing, you can have a message and get some clients and amplify it. But if the message is this person sucks, maybe not going to work out so well for you. So if you can have you could get on the court appointed list, have some court appointed clients be super happy with you. And those that are super happy with you, at the end, you can be like, by the way, here's a link to my thing. Can you please review me? So that's probably a way that anyone can start. And anyone can join the local bar association and or be active in the bar advocates program and put on a CLE. Like, one thing I found.
Yeah, they're dying for people to put on presentations.
Yes.
Just put yourself out there.
Yes. And I used to do improv. I was in a pump band. I would do all these things. And after a while you realize, like, it helps to get to a point where you think it's funny when you bomb and you don't care about what happens in the room. It's maybe I wouldn't recommend that as your first strategy. And you can build credentials where it doesn't matter if you presented to a room full of 3 people that were indifferent that were on the phones. You can correctly put on your website that I did the thing and here's the transcript. And what I find is very often I would just be able to reuse things. Like, one thing I used to do all the time was I would go to the scene of the crime with my client and I would bring a camcorder. And this was like in 2005. No one did that. So you have this recording.
No one's whipping out a camcorder right now.
Right.
I've got phones.
Yes. But just, you record what you do, and then you use it to prep the case, and you take pieces of that, and that can also be web content. So just,
true.
So just virtually anything you do, you can, can be part of your SOP, can be recorded and broken down. And like, before you came on the scene and your extremely talented, brilliant engineer popped up, like I was Evan. Yes. Evan saw me, ranting about something. I'm in front of my computer. I have my foot pedal on. So it's all the time. It's just my reflex. I hit my foot pedal. I'm recording a lot of blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then my Claude or Codex or whatever I'm talking into will take my nonsense and attribute some sort of meaning to it. And then it will be useful. So on your phone,
thank God for AI.
Yes, thank God for AI.
AI you just bullshit into the AI and something else comes out on the other side.
There's actually a lot to be said for that. And like, I make a lot of AI songs for my daughter, and it's just a matter of like finding a hook and finding a couple of couplets. Yes.
Yeah. Have you I'm sure you're familiar with There I Ruined It, which is the greatest AI song smithing I've seen. Have you seen that? You once again thought more highly of me than for you and everyone else. Like, go to the YouTube channel There I Ruined It. It's just like song mashups using AI. So it's like 50 Cent doing a Conway Twitty song, stuff like that. Great stuff. Okay, I got 2 more things I want to ask you about. We talked a little bit about like marketing for criminal defense attorneys. Like, what? So if you were launching a practice again, like, how would you be using AI? Would you dive head first? Would you use it for everything? Would you even get like traditional software? Would you just use Anthropic tools? Like, what would you do?
Yes, no, and yes.
Okay, I can't even keep track of the 4 questions I asked, but anyway.
All right, so
expound.
So here's what I do, and I am of course insane. So you don't want to copy every step.
That's why you're here.
Yes. I use Claude. I think of Claude as sort of being the top of my stack. So I have Claude for $20 a month. I use I use mostly Sonnet. I use some Fable. And I think about
you're talking about like basically the different models you can run in the system.
Yes. And I use ChatGPT / Codex, again, $20 a month. My foot pedals cost like $16 each. So I can just press the button and rant and say all sorts of stuff. And I have my agents
Beautiful.
researching all sorts of things. And I also like Grok is like $10 a month. So
Yeah.
I personally would be reluctant to, at first, I would spend as little money as I would just try to use AI. Now you probably want some sort of CRM for sure. And it would be pretty hard to say, I started a firm, I used Clio, and it ruined my life, and it was the worst decision of my life. That's probably not a story you hear very often, right?
Wait, are you being serious right now?
It works, right? It can't be that big of a mistake to use Clio, right? It works. So there are some basic things.
There goes the Clio sponsorship. Go on.
No. I'm saying like you could probably want a case management system that has some sort of CRM, and that probably works. But in general, for me, I would rather have the AI and just track and hold everything as cheaply as possible. But many human beings operate very differently, and are probably just fine with, okay, I'll just have like one of these and not go too deep.
I kind of feel the same way. Like if I was starting to practice tomorrow, I would go all in on AI tools. I don't even know that I have a ton of legal tech software that I'm using, as we destroy the whole premise of this entire podcast. Anyway, last thing I wanted to ask you is you were a lawyer, and
yes,
almost every lawyer I talk to is like, or are a lawyer. Every lawyer I talk to is like, I don't like really being a lawyer. I want to do some other shit. I want to write books. I want to like go teach. I want to start a marketing company. But most of them never do that. You did all that shit. Like, how has it been?
I'm very glad at the way every single event played itself out. Because what's interesting is, and also even sort of early on, I realized I didn't necessarily want to be more famous or prominent as a criminal lawyer, because I was like, oh, so then the more famous, the busier I get, the more weekend phone calls I have. How do I get off this treadmill?
Right.
And my having a business, Get Lawyer Leads, where we did websites for criminal defense attorneys across the country. And I was like, oh, so I can work my ass off for a while, and then all these checks just show up and I don't do anything. Cool. That sounds better, right? So I was always sort of doing that. And the other thing was, in growing my businesses and practice, we would go to conventions in Las Vegas all the time. So like there'd be a marketing convention or a drunk driving convention or something in there. And in Vegas, and I did this with my brother, we would play poker. And I want to say in like 25 trips to Vegas, I won money playing poker every single time. So it was like this weird loop of, so we would, so I could make money from the law practice. I could make money for the marketing business. I could make money playing poker. And after a while, I was like, there's other lives out there. And then you have a business. You're like, okay, I'm going to buy an office condo. So I'm not just paying rent. I'm like putting equity into this thing. And after a while, you're like, oh, I'm not a criminal defense lawyer. I'm an entrepreneur.
Right. So
that was helpful. And I did some teaching. And now the other thing was, as I started to think about getting out of it, it was a process. Mm-hmm. Part of it was, the percentage of happy criminal defense attorneys north of 50 that wanted to continue doing it, very, very low.
Pretty much zero.
And I cannot, when I was in the process of getting out, I would tell people about it. I cannot tell you how many of them were like, yeah, I am so envious of you. I wish, and it just seemed to me.
I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yes. Yes. So yeah. And even like after a while I was like, oh yeah, it's more fun. After a while I was like, yeah, I look forward to the days that I'm not in court. There was I was like, so I'm sitting here drinking coffee, looking at some numbers. Would I rather be doing this or taking a $10,000 fee, being in front of a jury and getting the paper? I'd be like, no, I'm good. So, so you're like,
I mean, you made the lifestyle choice, which is cool. And now you're traveling around New England, eating elk and shit with your daughter. So pretty good.
Yeah, that is, and I really do, not everyone can be or is in the position as me, but I also, I'm just like absurdly frugal. So I'm like, what?
Clearly. Yeah. All the stuff you've done. Super interesting. Thanks for going through all that. I appreciate it. Exploring your many lives with us. Can we take a break, and will you come back for a final segment?
We can absolutely take a break. And right now I'm claiming that I'll be back for the final segment.
Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody. It's the Counter Program. It's a podcast within a podcast. This is a conversational space where we can address usually unrelated topics that I want to explore to greater depth with my guests. Expect no rhyme and very little reason. Russell, for those on video, they can see. For the audio audience, I will describe that you're currently wearing a helmet. What's happening?
Well, Jared, during the first part of the presentation, Jared appeared pleasant, but in fact, he was deeply confrontational and traumatizing. So I felt the need to wear some protection.
I am an asshole. It's true.
This is my truth, and I will not have it mocked.
Now, you also have some balls to juggle. Yeah. Would you like to juggle now just to show the world? Should we hold off on that?
Listen, it's your show. If the format is juggled at the beginning, then that's fine.
The format is like,
yeah. Of all the guests you have that juggle, right? It's also an issue with.
Oh, look at that. One-handed. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's a different, and the thing is, you probably want to lecture on juggling. So
can you? No, we'll get into like the actual segment, which I have planned out, but I want to learn more about. Like, I'm impressed. I can't juggle. Like, I thought that was pretty good. You want to do a little juggling segment, and then we'll get into it.
Well, it's just something that I see. What I learned was, I joined the UMass Juggling Club. I was in it for like 6 weeks when I was not. So I learned a few tricks.
There's the University of Massachusetts Juggling Club. Is this correct?
There was one in 1988. I can't swear that there's one now, right?
The 80s. What a time.
Yeah. And it was useful. When I was in a punk band, we couldn't. So here's the way that worked. First I formed a band, right?
Yeah.
And then I bought a guitar because I had never played guitar before. And then 8 months later,
had you played any other instruments?
No, none of that. So
start a band. Why not?
Yeah. And for our first show, we had a documentary of our band starting with our first show. So we would do things in the wrong order, right? And if you can't play, right? So, and this has happened a lot in my life.
It was a punk band. You just scream into the microphone. Is that the deal?
It was a punk band. Like we had songs that got played in the radio. I mean, like we could play to some extent, but what I realized was if you can juggle and eat fire, while playing, like I'm not, like I was in the West Juggling Club. Let me tell you, I wasn't good at it. Like I was in the bottom 10% of ability of those people.
I know. You look pretty good to me. But I can't juggle even once.
But that's the thing is, if you surround yourself with really smart, successful people in lots of different areas, and you take a few tricks, and you take those tricks in a different environment, people think you're a genius. Whereas anyone in the UMass Juggling Club would be like, oh, he's not doing anything. But no one thinks you're going to juggle and eat fire at a punk show.
Right. What was the name of your band?
The band was called High Step and Seafood.
High Step and what?
High Step and Seafood. Like one of the things we would do was we would
as one does.
Like I'd never seen another band bring in a toaster oven and make fish sticks and hand them out. So I was like, since our name is High Step and Seafood,
that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I would love a fish stick right now. Damn.
And the thing is, like, And like we would, for our mailing list at the time, like first of all, we had a computer, which in the 90s was a thing.
Yeah.
And we had a database program, which was shocking.
Yeah.
And we would mail out flyers. Like one time we mailed out like scratch tickets to everyone, and people were like, "What?" For $1, we had an experience. And like one time for our flyers, I was rejected from Harvard Law School. So on the back of the flyer, it had my rejection letter. Yeah, it had my rejection letter from Harvard Law School. So you would just do these things, which, I mean, lots of people, I'm sure, got rejected from institutions, but not many people would put that in the back of their flyer to advertise a show.
That is beautiful. I feel like you guys should do a reunion tour. Is it time for High Step and Seafood to come back? We haven't
played together since, I want to say, the year 2000. But yeah, maybe we have more.
Not stopped other bands.
Yeah, and my brother, who was the other half of Get Lawyer Leads, was in the band, so I still know.
High Step and Seafood, the 2026 reunion tour.
Yeah, it was
2027. Give you a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Wow, we got a little bit of an additional interview segment. I'm excited. That never happens. Russell, when you were messaging with me about coming on the show, you said, and I quote, "I love Norm Macdonald and Conan O'Brien." That's fair. Perfect place to be for that. So I prepared something for you, which I'd like to call the Norm Macdonald Hour. For the next hour, we'll be exploring the life and career of Norm Macdonald together in the form of various questions. Are you ready?
I was ready as ever to be.
I'm just fucking with you. It's not going to be an hour. Maybe people will listen
I'm
to that.
disappointed.
I don't know. I've got some Norm trivia to see how you do. And I will say that no one has ever scored a perfect score on our trivia segment ever in the history of the podcast. But I feel like this might be the first time. You've surprised me thus far.
I'm glad to see I've set your expectations so high that I cannot exceed them. I'm
hoping. I'm hoping for a perfect score one of these days. Yes. So here we go. Question number 1. It's a little known fact that Norm Macdonald wrote and starred in the greatest film of all time, which is 1998's Dirty Work, a movie about two long-lost brothers who start a revenge-for-hire business. I can give you multiple choice if you need it, but do you know this film, and do you know who directed the movie?
Oh, I mean, I've seen some of it on Tubi. And
you've never watched Dirty Work all the way through?
I don't think I've watched. I think I've watched 2/3 of it.
Oh, you got to watch this movie. It's great.
So Chris Farley is all right, and is it Artie Lang? Is the Howard Stern guy who's sort of his?
Chris Farley is a Vietnam veteran whose nose was bit off by a prostitute who can't smell.
Yeah,
Artie Lang is his half brother, long lost brother, who starts a revenge for hire business with him. I could go line for line on Dirty Work. Chevy Chase, Dr. Farthing in Dirty Work.
That's right. Yeah, Chevy's in it, and is it? See, it feels like Lorne Michaels would have been involved with it because it's a post. But then again, he was fired.
Yeah, I think he was. This was before Norm was fired from.
Saturday Night Live. Yeah, maybe it was.
I think Chevy Chase with the iconic. He bet on the movie Rocky IV and bet against Rocky. Excellent stuff.
Chevy is his own. There are lots of interesting stories about Chevy. There are lots of funny stories about Chevy which don't paint him in a good light. But,
right. But he's fucking hilarious in Dirty Work.
Chevy, he
one of his best roles.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some multiple choice for the director.
All right.
John Stamos, Bob Saget, or Dave Coulier. Which Full House dad directed Dirty Work?
See, I know. I would go with Bob Saget. I don't actually know, but that feels...
You would be correct.
All right.
Bob Saget, like dirty comedian in real life.
Yes.
And apparently they were trying to work on a sequel before they both passed away. Sadly. That one.
I didn't like Full House at all, but Bob Saget is good in interviews.
Yes. All right, we're 1 for 1.
All right.
So we're on a good path. Question number 2. In 2005, Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo, The sequel to Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, the Rob Schneider vehicle, Norm made a cameo as what? An Irish male prostitute named McManus, a pimp named Hicks, or a naked bicycle cop named Farley. All of these characters appear in the movie.
Huh. Huh.
Have you seen this one?
I know I haven't seen this. Thing is like for Norm, I've watched like all his SNL stuff. I haven't watched.
Get there.
Yeah, most of his one-off stuff.
You got to get into the film.
Yeah, so I feel like and like Norm, in my opinion, he's either 1 or 1A as greatest stand-up comedian. As far
who's
as
1A? I mean, who's 1B?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard for me to say anything bad about Norm Macdonald or Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, good. We're going down all the right lines here.
So I feel
what do you think his role was in Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo?
If I had to guess, I feel like Irish male prostitute fits him more than pimp.
Correct.
Right.
We're 2 for 2. This is one of the single greatest monologues in film history. It's fucking hilarious. You should check it out on YouTube. This guy could play the hell out of a cameo. All right, question number 3. In Norm Macdonald's first movie role, he asked the protagonist who he would rather bone, Jack Nicholson or Meg Ryan, before clarifying that he meant 1974 Jack Nicholson. What was the movie?
Oh, no, let's see. I don't even have...
I can throw you some multiple choice if you want.
All right, throw me some multiple choice.
The People versus Larry Flint, Screwed with Dave Chappelle, or Billy Madison.
He was certainly in The People versus Larry Flint. He was
he was in all these movies.
Okay. He was a reporter in the in People versus Larry Flint who like got out of a car and because his thing was like, yeah, he didn't drive.
Yeah. Right.
So, and you said the first movie he was in?
This is his first movie appearance.
Okay. So I think I want to say Billy Madison is 95 and People versus Larry Flint is 96. So I'm going to go with Billy Madison.
Correct.
All
We're
right.
3 for 3. It could be happening, Evan. Brace yourself. Question number 4. For Norm Macdonald's very first Saturday Night Live appearance in 1993, he played a waiter in a pre-recorded sketch with the show's host. Who was the host?
Can you give me the multiple
choice
choice?
is
And we'll see if
available.
Dana Carvey is one of the choices.
Luke Perry, Jason Priestley, or Shannon Doherty? For those who are unaware, those were cast members for Beverly Hills 90210.
That much.
Which was an insanely popular show in the early 90s. Luke Perry, Jason Priestley, Shannon
Right.
Doherty.
I was thinking because I was thinking about the waiters nauseated by food sketch, which is a different that was. I feel like Sharon Doherty probably hosted at one point, but I feel like almost certainly Luke Perry did. So I'm going to go with Luke Perry.
We were so close. Shannon Doherty.
Oh,
Your
well.
first instinct was correct.
Yes.
Well, we won't have our perfect score today, but you're still kicking ass. A lot of great waiter sketches on Saturday Night Live. The guy with the pepper, you like the juice guys from the Italian restaurant. Good stuff.
I think, I can see, the thing is, I can see it being true for several reasons. First of all, it's very common for comedians and writers to be waiters as their day
that's a good
job.
point.
Plus, it's incredibly common for them to just like sit around and drink and just sort of brainstorm in that environment. So,
true.
Yeah.
True. All right, I got 2 more for you. In the show Family Guy, a New England show, set in the fictional town of Quahog, Rhode Island, Norm makes a legendary voice acting appearance as Death himself, who attempts to claim Peter Griffin's soul. Only things go awry when something happens to Death. What happens? Does he get an ear infection? Does he separate his shoulder? Or does he sprain his ankle?
I feel like an ear infection is the funniest thing for death.
That's a good point. Is that your final answer, sir?
That is my final answer.
Sprains his ankle.
Wow.
So Death sprains his ankle, and then everyone becomes immortal, and Peter Griffin has to become the Grim Reaper, and hilarity ensues. All right, we got one more.
All right.
These got tougher as we went on. In the Norm show, which was Norm's sitcom that aired on ABC for 3 seasons, from 1999 to 2001. I was surprised at that, too. I thought it would have been 1 before it was canceled. Which former movie co-star of Norm's was brought in during season 2 to play his half-brother? Was it Dave Chappelle, Traylor Howard, or Artie Lang on the Norm show? Season 2 of 3, surprisingly.
I'm guessing Artie Lang.
Correct. And that's because he was his brother in Dirty Work. So we got to Dave Chappelle. We got to Norm's sitcom. Any other Norm-centric information or stories? Or...
I mean, the 2 best things, I mean, there's many, like there's a whole OJ thing that went on for years. But his appearance with Courtney Thorne just going after Carrot Top was just, this is on Becoming the Riot Kid. This was like...
Oh, he was also a great late night show guest. That's right. Yeah.
No, those were his lanes. He was a great stand-up comic, and he was one of maybe the best ever late night talk show host, because he would do anything. And like some of the funniest, the things I loved about Norm was like, people would be interviewed about him, and they would be like, I was legitimately afraid to be on the stage at Norm because you never knew what he was going to do. And he did not care about his reputation. Like, there were some of my favorite Norm stories were...
He said as he adjusted his war helmet. Go on.
Yes. He would... I said, like, on his... he was doing stand-up for it might have been like New Jersey for like a week. And Jeff, the guy who does the roasts, I can't remember his last name right now.
Oh, Jeff Ross. Yeah.
Jeff Ross. Yeah. He said he was with them for a week, and he did stuff that he'd never seen. Like when he would do well, he would hide them back at the end of the show. When he would bomb afterwards, he would go to the front to greet the people on the way out, because it just brings this sort of awkward. And
also, he had a little bit of Andy Kaufman to him, I think.
Yes.
So just so people know that, that Courtney Thorne Smith sketch, she was on Melrose Place. I think that was from Conan. And she was in a movie with Carrot Top, which she was trying to pronounce, which she was kind of trying to promote. And Norm Macdonald was just like shitting on Carrot Top for the entire interview. It is really funny.
and like Norm's bit on, and this was like in the 90s when people didn't do this thing. He had this great joke for Charles Woodson, and it was like this weird OJ callback. It was like, Charles Woodson, first defensive player in decades to win the Heisman Trophy. No, you can't take that away from him. Well, unless he kills his ex-wife and a waiter, you can't take it away from him. And it's this thing where, like, you see the reaction. Charles, like, he's a 21-year-old kid. He's lighting up. He's so excited. And it's like, but why? Like, just this sort of,
Norm was great. I'm glad we did a little Norm tribute on the pod. We'll never be able to use all of this, but Russell, thank you for coming on. I had a lot of fun.
Great.
Thanks for our guest today, Russell Matson, who is a marketing and SEO consultant for criminal defense law firms. To learn more about Russell and his work, visit russellmatsonlaw.com. All one word. Russell rhymes with love muscle. matsonlaw.com. Now, because I'll always be a 90s kid who knows more Decepticons than you, but whose true passion is burning CDs for anyone who would listen, I am now just doing the modern version of that, which is creating Spotify playlists for every podcast episode that I record, where the songs are tangentially related to an episode topic. For this week's playlist, we're rolling out, finally, the long-awaited Russell's and or Norm's playlist, where, in honor of our recent guest and subject matter concentration, we feature songs that feature prominent Russells or Norms in some way. That was a mouthful. And it's all brought to you by Russell Stover Chocolates. Actually, that is a house of lies. I don't even know anyone who works for Russell Stover Chocolate. And all the Norm Stovers I know are too old to be mixing chocolate and shit. Join us next time when I perform a dramatic reading of all 100 stories of the Decameron to while away the hours.